Hey everybody. Hopefully everybody can see our presentation. Um, Celine, does it seem like we're good to go?
It seems like we're good to go. People in the chat confirming we're live. We've got video, so we're good.
Awesome.
Just reshare your screen with us for the presentation. I can give you confirmation on that. But I see people entering in the chat now, commenting, so it looks like we are good.
Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen. Oh, nope, sharing the wrong one. All right, guys, getting set up here. Perfect. Give me 1 second. All right, we should be good to go.
Yes, I see it. Go ahead.
Awesome, thank you. So, hey everybody. My name is Marcos Duran. I work for the consulting firm Serconte, and today we're going to be talking about how to pass driver's ed and how to avoid a crash as the first time Pardot admin. A little bit about me. I work for Serconte, like I said. I was also nominated to become a Salesforce marketing champion earlier this year. And I also lead with one of our other presenters later this week, Laura Black, the Pardot user group in Austin, Texas. Today we have a good treat for you. We're going to go ahead and cover some main topics that if you're logging into Pardot for the first time, you should probably get set up, or if all of a sudden, because of different shifts in your organization, you ended up being the person that is now the go-to to be the Pardot and or maybe Salesforce administrator. These are some things that you want to check within Pardot to make sure that your instance is at least at the bare minimum good to go. We do have a QA tab on your right of your screen. Please use that to write your questions there, and we'll try our best to make sure that we get to those towards the end of this, training. So the way that I'm going to approach this is we have this 5 things that we're going to cover. May breeze through some of them, but I'm going to be using this with a storyline. So without further ado, here we go. So it's day 1, right? You're a new marketing specialist at X company, and your new role says that you have to manage Pardot. You have to send out marketing campaigns. You have to make sure that the leads go where they need to go. And your first task on the job is to create an ebook campaign for the holidays that's going to launch in 12 days. So where do you start, right? Notice that you have a little bit of marketing automation experience, but maybe you don't, so this should still help. The very first thing, before you can send out an email out the door, you want to make sure that these 3 technical items are set up. Now, with these, you'll likely work with your IT department to make sure that they're situated. We have your email sending domain, so we have a couple of items there that you have to essentially validate the email sending address that you're sending emails from Pardot to your different leads and contacts. For example, since I work at Serconte, my email address will end with @serconte.com. So essentially, we type that into Pardot, and then once it's validated, we're good to go. Website tracking codes, we add that to the website so we can see where our leads and contacts are traveling to our website. And then the tracker domain, we use this to pretty much act as the URL for any of our assets. So think landing pages, the actual ebook that they're going to download, right? Things like that. When you look at the URL on the top, that's what's going to show up, right? So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and show you a screenshot, right? And this is where you would normally go. This is what we would call Pardot Classic. This is where you would go, admin, domain management. And then this is where you usually type in what you want. Notice that in this particular org, they have 3 email sending domains and all the little triangles are red. This would mean that it would not be safe for us to send an email because we could technically end up either on blacklists, and it could also yield really low open rates and even high bounce rates. Additionally, in the same tab, we would scroll down and we would see this place where we would add our tracker domains. So out of the box, Pardot gives you essentially on one tracker domain that's called go.pardot.com. Everything you create starts with that, and then it has a slash and a bunch of other characters. So there's that. And so in this example, again, the little tabs that you see on the right are not green. There's some steps that you have to do to make sure that those are green, but ultimately, we just want to make sure that all that is validated, so your assets can be branded, right? Very aligned to what your main domain on your website is. All right, day 2. So you did your research, you found things, and you went ahead and met your IT director. You described the situation. This is pretty urgent, right? You're trying to send out this email out the door in less than 12 days now, and you can't, right? So then what you do is you outline this, document this, and they say they'll take it from there. Great. So then where else do you go? It's an email campaign, so we need email templates, right? You log into Pardot, and you notice that there's a big list of them, and you're just like, man, which one do I actually use, right? So what do? So you go and you make sure that they're branded, right? And I think for the most part, most people understand what that means, right? You want to make sure that you have your colors, that you have your social media buttons, stuff like that. But something that you may not know, if you are a current Pardot customer, you should have received a couple of emails actually earlier this week and late last week that Chrome and other tools are actually giving warning messages to people that are going to your content if you have this thing called mixed content in your email templates and in your landing page templates. Right here, what I'm outlining are just simply some of the attributes that you would have on landing pages, right? So for emails, logo, physical address, the unsubscribe link, and maybe your social buttons. And for landing pages, other things are similar. So why is the mixed content an issue? So ultimately, if you go into your templates now, you may not be a super techie marketer that you feel super comfortable with this, but this is something that you can do. So that email right there on the bottom, product service notification, would be the one that you would have gotten recently. And so with this one, what it tells you ultimately is, hey, if you have a mixed number of links that, as you can see in that green triangle in the middle, it says HTTP://. But then if we go to another one, like 1 or 2 rows down, there's another one that has HTTPS. That means that there is a mixture of websites that you are referring either for images, for just links that you're going to put, stuff like that, that are not collaborating together. And so when would you see this? If you click on a link, you may see a message like at the very top where the URL is, and it's a little lock. And it's telling you that this connector is not secure. That's what we've seen pretty much for most of 2020 up to now, because they're preparing. But very soon, you'll actually get a message that won't even let you go through, right? So in order to make sure that your forms, where you have your landing pages, or even on your website, you want to make sure that you work with IT to make sure that you guys get what's called SSL certificate, which makes all your assets HTTPS. This goes back to the tracker domain, which is something else you have to validate, and you have to make sure that that's HTTPS as well. What can you do as a marketer who maybe not super techy? Obviously, bring this to the attention of your IT department. On your templates, you can go like I'm doing here and simply make a checklist of all the URLs. You can just do Control F and type in HTTP and then colon. So any of the ones that are missing the S's are the ones that need to be updated. Sometimes it's as easy as just adding the S, but sometimes you have to actually check the source to make sure that that source is now more secured. All right, so we're on day 3. You finalize your template. You work with branding to make sure it's good. You got all your pieces there. You're still waiting on IT to come back to you. And then you notice that as you were building your template, that there was a user called Jeff Claus that just came in here and like edited your template. And you're like, what's going on? And so you go back to IT because, you know, that's the person that you made the relationship with. And you're like, hey, why is this person like able to edit messages if they're sales? And then you realize that there's no guidelines to like any user permissions in Pardot. And so, you know, what do you do now, right? Well, we take it over to user management. And so here with user management, we want to make sure that in any instance, you want to have anywhere from 2 to 5 administrators, right? Because you don't want to be the only one that's in charge of everything in the event that you're out on vacation or that maybe you lose access for whatever reason. So you want to have other ones, administrators in there. I went ahead and outlined the other roles that exist within Salesforce here. But yeah, again, you want to have at least 2 to 5 administrators. So then you build your rules, right? You document them and you hand that over to IT. Now we're on day 5. You've done a lot, so pat yourself in the back. Now what we do is we have, you know, part of this campaign is for prospects to fill out the form, right? So then they can get this ebook on how nonprofits can be more prepared for fraud, especially right now with donations at the end of the year and cyber attacks and stuff like that. And you know, depending on the area of interest that you'll have a field on your form that says area of interest. You want different SDRs or outreach teams, right? However you want to call them at your organization, reach out. So you go and you talk to the sales manager to get any specifics, and you notice that there's also a lot of unassigned prospects in Salesforce that they're dying because nobody bothered to assign them, you know, and qualify them on the Pardot side to then send them to sales. So where do you start? So you want to make sure that you know, lead routing is very important. This is something that is often missed for people that are just implementing Pardot. So you definitely don't want that to happen. The easiest way to assign people is one of the 3 options that you see on the right. You can use Salesforce, either their assignment rules, or you can use queues to send them over into Salesforce from Pardot, or you can assign them to a user that exists in both places, Salesforce and Pardot, and you can use the option that says assign user, or you can create a group and then do round robin assignments. All of these actions are within Pardot. You can find them in various places like forms, automation roles, and even Engagement Studio. All right, you're on day 10. Oof, you've done a lot and you'll cover a lot of things. So you check with IT. They're like, hey, we did everything. You triple checked and it looks good. The content has been created, right? You work hard. You probably stayed up really late, 1 or 2 days because of the tight deadline. And you went ahead and sent the email to your manager for final approval. You got approval later that day. So you went ahead and scheduled it, and you just, you know, you went to take a cup of coffee and a walk because you deserve it. So you're 2 days ahead of schedule. Good for you. In 5 days, you have a check-in with your boss. So what can you do? So what we're going to do here is extras. So I'm going to highlight Laura Black's, my co-leader in the Austin user group, presentation on Friday because she's going to really dive deep into sync errors. I'm just going to give you a high-level overview. So sync errors are issues between Salesforce and Pardot that essentially prevent Pardot from being 100% in sync with Salesforce. Most of these errors originate from Salesforce, from the sync going back and forth. And you know, you go and you check. You would go to the admin tab, then to connectors, and then on the salesforce.com row, there's a little gear, and you would press that, and you notice that you have 2020 sync errors. Go figures, right? Like if this year couldn't get any possibly worse. And so you're like, okay, well, you know, what do I have to do, right? I want to make a first impression this first month, this first 2 weeks. So you notice that a lot of these issues originate from what you're looking at here on the screen. These tend to be some of the more common ones. There's conflict on field types. So when you mapped over from Salesforce into Pardot, you mapped over a field, the fields don't match, right? And that's an issue sometimes. Validation rules in Salesforce, the Salesforce admin added a bunch of rules to specific fields. and those rules don't exist technically in the Pardot side. So then when you're trying to create records and you don't follow a specific process that you were supposed to, you're triggering all this validation rules. Restriction on fields. You may have a pick list that has 5 options in Salesforce and it's locked. And then in Salesforce, for whatever reason, you added a 6th one, or it's just an open-ended text box because you didn't map it right, and it's trying to input new types of data that don't technically exist on that list. And so those are issues as well. There could be Apex code, right, or a third-party package that's maybe conflicting with something. And then duplicates. So Pardot is really cool, is really good about like catching duplicates when you're like that person is filling out multiple forms. But it all depends on how you set that up in Salesforce. So sometimes Salesforce doesn't have like rules set up for that. Usually duplicates originate from Salesforce. All right, and this is how that log would look. All right, so you're on day 15. You're down to 60% of those thinkers, so good for you. You knocked it out. On your check-in, your boss is really impressed with everything that you've done. And then you go ahead and propose a plan to review the rest of the instance after you return from the holidays, because you deserve 2 good weeks of solid vacation with your family. So where do you go? So this is where we're going to wrap up. If you guys want to take a screenshot of this, the deck won't be available, but the video will be. This is pretty much everything that we talked about. And I went ahead and, just like sum it up here. So let me go ahead and stop. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm just going to look and take some questions from the Q&A. Let's see. Is this being recorded? Yes. Just a recording, sorry, Brian. Yep, Mike, you go to admin and domain management. If you're in Pardot Lightning, you would go to Pardot settings, and then same thing, domain management on the left side. Thank you, Peyton, for your question. Amanda, technically, you can knock it out in like an hour, maybe an hour and a half. What we usually see during implementations is that it's really sometimes like this is a side project that's not a priority for IT. So it could take weeks to do it, but the actual pushing of buttons shouldn't really take that long. Let me head over here to the chat. Yep, Jill, I agree. Email Builder will make it more user-friendly once it's set up, for sure. Let's see. Yeah, Anu, that's a great question. So the question is, we have around 9,000 plus sync errors. Is there any easy way to fix them? Most of the errors are country and state. I would start with working with your Salesforce admin to make sure that your pick lists are aligned. That would be the first thing. Number 2, you can use the Pardot API. You can use Engagement Studio, or you can use, Chris, you can download them all and use Excel, right, Magic to normalize what you can and re-import them. And the import process does 2 things. It updates the data, and it also pushes them to, if they're already in Salesforce, it'll push them if they have been assigned already. If they haven't been assigned yet, they'll just stay in Pardot, but it will update their information. So that would be something easy for you to clear a lot of those. And so making sure that you're taking the necessary precautions for that not to grow again. Making sure that your pick lists on both sides of the platform are the same would be the best way to do it, or that you have some sort of system in place to normalize that data for you. All right.
Hey, Marcos, jump over to the Q&A section. There's some new ones submitted.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Oh, open. Yep. Can I bet you $5 for the deck? Is using Classic better than Lightning for some of the admin tasks? The only thing that I have seen that is better for is when you're trying to currently set up third-party integrations, like GoToWebinar. Sometimes there's a bug with Pardot Lightning that stops you from like authenticating it properly, but really everything else you can do from Pardot Lightning just fine. Can you please go back to the slide? Okay. I'll do that. Coming from a very small marketing department with even smaller IT team, do you know of any other resources to be available? Mixed content analysis, more info on mixed. Yeah, so honestly, like at this point, this has been talked about for a year in the greater like email marketing and just like tech community, Corey. So if you just literally Google mixed content, there's, I'm sure, way better guides that go in a lot more in depth. I don't have any off the top of my head that I can refer to you. I just know that a lot of people have been getting those emails that I showed a screenshot of earlier. So I just wanted to make sure that it was brought to the attention. And Rebecca, somebody posted the screenshot on the actual chat if you go back to that tab. Cool. All right. In tracker domain, it has an option to default to HTTPS. I assume I should do that. Yes. So it's kind of like a two-step process, right? You have to make it primary first, and that takes a hot minute to do. And then after that, you have to go back to that same gear again and make it HTTPS. If you're working in that same kind of like small team mentality and you can get them to do it for you, you can go to the Pardot one at least and make that HTTPS, and that would work for the time being, right, until you get it situated. Is it possible to customize reports to pull in Salesforce data fields? You can only see data that you have mapped from Salesforce into Pardot. Reports in Pardot are not super customizable, so that would be no. You can do full exports, but you know that is all or just the basic fields. Michelle. All right. We got one more minute for any questions. All right, cool. Let me go ahead and launch this quick poll if you guys can fill that out for me, please. And yep, those two. Bandana, is there a way to export Pardot activity report? I guess on the individual person, I don't think so. I don't think you can export like everybody's activity like in one shot. You can export like how many submissions you had on a form, or you can export like emails, activity and stuff like that, but not like the entire thing. Cool. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Let's see. Celine, are we at time now?
We are at time, yes. Just hit that stop broadcast button for me.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, everybody. See ya.